Hello to you from New York City. I always start with good morning because I love the morning and I usually record in the morning, but I'm a little sad today actually because my sister passed away on this day. And while I do believe and practice celebrating life and remembering my loved ones on their birthday, I also keep in mind the day that they passed. It's actually more private and I don't usually discuss it or put anything on social media, but today's slightly different and here's why. I wrote a love letter to my sister and I'm going to read it to you. And part of the reason is because I love letter writing and I think it's a lost art. Someone asked me just yesterday, why do you love letters so much? And I said, well, for me, letters take us into our heart space. Recently, I saw a lovely piece on NBC Evening News at the end, that last feel-good segment. And it was about a school principal who asked all of the staff to write a letter to someone in the school. It could be a child, another staff member, a parent. And then they got those people together. And just saying this makes me emotional. They read the letters to each other. I think that we carry around things in our head that don't get said. And of course, there are angry things, but there's a lot of unexpressed love that stays lodged and unspoken. I love that quote, actually, that talks about grief being love that has no place to go. Anyway, that school piece with NBC News gave me the idea to share my letter with you. So while I say I love to write love letters, I consider all letters an act of love. And I think sharing them is a lovely thing. And I always have. I think when people write a letter, they're more deliberate and intentional with their words. Well, I know I am. And I think that it's a beautiful thing to say a meaningful thank you, or to say, I see you, I love you, I appreciate you, whatever it is. That includes an apology or you hurt my feelings and here's why letter. A couple of months ago, I took the time to write a letter to my best friend because I know she knows I love her and I know she knows that I'm right there with her. But I wanted to let her know in a more meaningful way that I saw her pain. So I wrote a letter to her and I read it. And basically it served as a conduit to a more real connection. It's funny, just yesterday I heard Jay Shetty, the former Buddhist monk who married Ben and J-Lo, on one of those reels that pass through your Instagram. And he said, just because you share a bed with someone every single night does not mean that you are intimate. He was saying something similar to what I say when I say intimacy is not a function of proximity. Connected conversation, real conversation, is not a simple byproduct of proximity or sleeping in bed with someone or being someone's best friend. Now, we're not always going to have connected, intimate, nourishing conversation, but I think it's important to try to come back to that in some way or another. And in the case of my best friend, writing her that letter took us to our heart space. So that's why I like letter writing. I think you speak from your heart, and that's a beautiful thing. Lastly, before I go on to read the letter, I want to say that I loved in Anderson Cooper's incredible podcast, All There Is. He brings up the idea that we can develop and further or enrich our relationship also with our loved ones who have passed. We are ever growing and evolving in our maturity and our wisdom and our perspective. And writing a letter to someone who has passed can be extremely cathartic and healing. So this piece I'm going to read to you was inspired by a card my sister, Pam, sent to me. She wrote me this thank you note because our father had died and I had taken my mother on a trip back to our hometown. Her kind and loving words to me were so beautiful and thoughtful and sweet and funny. Pam was super intellectually curious and fun and adventurous and my staunch supporter. She was born in 1950 and died at age 65. We are 4 children. She was the eldest. I was the youngest. We were 11 years apart. We were really, really great friends. So without saying more, here's my letter to my beloved sister, Pamela Sue Klein. Dearest Pam, my heart literally broke the day you became an angel 7 years ago today. I have never been the same. The dull ache of losing you has mostly become sweet longing, but today the pangs of remembrance have a hold on me. I sit here with my toast and coffee gazing at these beautiful photos of us. I also have the sweet thank you card you sent for taking Mom on her last trip to St. Louis after Dad died. Your familiar, small, jagged handwriting fills every inch. It oozes with love. On that trip, we drove past our old houses and the family stores on Delmar and Manchester. I have bittersweet memories of Mom's visits with Uncle Wally and the Rabbit family. She glowed, tickled to be with them. It was her first time as a widow. She wore her aloneness with such grace. I was acutely aware that each goodbye would be her last. I had to turn to hide my tears every time. I realized that the visit was preparing me to be brave for my own goodbye to Mom. You were our fearless leader in caring for her in those final months. It was the sweetest and most meaningful experience of my entire life. It took us into unknown territory, a new and different level of intimacy. At the time, I didn't know the experience was yet another lesson in bravery, preparing me to face losing you so soon thereafter. Thank God. It would have been utterly unbearable. The PS part of your card has me weepy and feeling deeply alone today. Thank you for your cheer. Thank you for your chatter. Thank you for your silliness. Thank you for your willingness to get excited. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Surely you can read my mind from the beyond and the love letter I carry to you in my head. Thank you for showing me what it means to live loud and proud, no matter how uncomfortable it makes others feel. Thank you for your courage to speak truth even when it was unbearably hard to hear. Thank you for shielding me from your pain when I was too young to understand, then old enough to be frightened by it. Thank you for teaching me to see life as one big wild adventure. Thank you for trusting me with your fragile heart. What I miss most of all is your staunch friendship and reassuring touch. Every morning I recite aloud your prayer. Knowing you uttered the exact same words comforts me. Oh, Pammy, I thought the pain of losing Dad so suddenly in the car accident, then Mom, and then you, would break me. The ache of squelched tears lodged in my throat became unbearable until my heart burst wide open. These days I'm feeling brave enough to unveil the tender murmurings of my heart, the intimate truths you and Mom and Dad are no longer here to hold. I speak for us all. Your baby sister, Kankan. P.S. I play this silly game with myself. When the landline rings, I never answer it, but I pretend it's you. You were the only person who ever called me on that number. I haven't answered it since you left. So thank you to those of you who have stuck with me this far. Thank you for bearing witness to my pain. Just remember, when someone you know is grieving, you don't always have to do something or say something. Sometimes our job is simply to bear witness. Thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable and emotional. It's taken me 60 years to believe and understand and accept that my emotionality and my vulnerability is actually strength and courage. I've been hiding it my whole life, except for with the people that I'm closest with, one of the main people being my sister. You know, part of the idea behind Dear Constance for me was about showing up in my full humanity. I'm going to end with that beautiful quote. Grief, I've learned, is really just love. It's all the love you want to give but cannot. All that unspent love gathers in the corner of your eyes, the lump in your throat, and in that hollow part of your chest. Grief is just love with no place to go. Jamie Anderson. Thank you so much. Until next time, from my heart to yours.